Chamber this week, we're talking about the odd history of an odd celebration. We play some cartoon pirates, and Cody talks about being a monster in the RPG section. All this and more on Fandom Roulette. We're back, baby.
Yeah.
Welcome to Fandom Roulette. This is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And we seemed to have passed each other like ships in the night. And by that, you'll probably hear that Cody's voice is the beautiful, melodious voice you're used to hearing, and my voice sounds like a frog man.
Ooh, a froghemoth, perhaps?
No, just a man who got a cold, basically mere hours after recording my solo episode to give your voice a chance to heal. Funny how the world works like that, huh?
I know, maybe we're yin and yang.
That's possible. I've always thought this might be the case. But anyways, Cody, so what nerdy stuff have you been up to?
I've been playing Sea of Thieves and Into the Breach.
Oh, those sound like video games.
They do sound like video games.
Oh man, how are those going?
What have you been? Oh, go on.
How have those been going?
Those have been great. I probably will talk in great length about them in the video game section, but what have you been up to?
Spoilers. Well, let's see. There's a couple of things. The first thing is, I went to see the movie Annihilation with some friends over the weekend. Annihilation is a very, very good, slow burn sci-fi thriller starring Natalie Portman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Tessa Thompson, Gina Rodriguez, and in a very small role, Oscar Isaac.
Cool.
And it's a movie directed by the guy who directed the really good film Ex Machina, who is this really talented sci-fi director who's on kind of another level because he's not really doing the big budget, sci-fi action adventure movies. He's doing smaller stories with smaller scripts. I also played Overwatch. Yeah.
Would it be your first time?
I would argue time and a half because the first time I played it, I was a little drunk and very tired.
Yeah.
But I was doing a lot better this time around. I was pretty good at Reinhardt and Roadhog and Junkrat. And then I got a sick kill as McCree, and then I died immediately. Yeah. And then my friend taught me how to play Magic the Gathering, so it was just a very nerdy weekend for me.
Very cool.
All right. It was pretty big.
Hell yeah.
So we're recording this on our usual Wednesday recording time, but this upcoming weekend marks a kind of weird, interesting little celebration that I kind of wanted to talk about, which is April 1st, aka April Fool's Day. So yeah, so April Fool's Day is kind of this weird, pseudo-holiday that, we all kind of participate in to varying degrees depending on the type of person you are. But it's a thing that is celebrated in some European and Western countries, and it's spread by playing practical jokes and spreading hoaxes. And so the victims are the April Fools, and you, as the pranker, are the fooler. And so I was, really curious about this thing that we all just kind of know exists, but we don't really, talk about all that much. So there are people out there who argue that the first Canterbury Tale, or the first instance of April Fool's Day was from the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, who in the Nun's Priest Tale has a story where on the 32nd of March, or April 1st, a vain animal is tricked by a fox. But, there's a lot of people who say, that, well, that's garbage, but that's just history for you. But we have other sort of references as well. So in 1508, there was a French poet whose name is Eloy de Amrivel, who refers to a poisson d'avril, or a fish of April, which is a possible reference to the holiday. So I will explain that in a second, because I know I'm just going to drop this weird thing on ya. There is evidence from 1539. There was a Flemish poet who wrote about a nobleman who would send his servants on foolish errands. There was a Fool's Holy Day in Great Britain, referenced in 1686. And in 1698, several people were tricked to go to the Tower of London to see the lions washed. So there are some early examples of it. But what a lot of historians like to point to, and this is kind of a weird thing, but I think it's rather interesting, in the Middle Ages, New Year's Day was celebrated on March 25th in a lot of European towns. Why? I don't know. But in a lot of places, this was a kind of week-long celebration, and so in some areas of France, this was like a week-long celebration. So it would end on April 1st. And so there's evidence to suggest that perhaps people were making fun of these fools who thought that the new year began in April, or that in other places it was just the end of a very long celebration in which much merriment was made and much alcohol was drunk, and so people were acting foolish on this day. Let's talk a little bit about some other things. So there we have examples of April Fool's Day's traditions throughout kind of the Western world. So in the UK, it's very similar to what we do here in America, where you play a little prank, shout April Fools, and then if you're playing a joke after midnight, the person who is playing the joke becomes the April Fool. That's fun. This is actually so here's a fun thing for you, Cody. Depending on where you live in the UK, you wouldn't be a fool. You could also be known as a noodle, a gob, a gobby, or a noddy. And if you're in Scotland, it's actually called Hunting Gauk Day, which is hunting the gauk, which is Scottish for cuckoo or a foolish person. So that's fun. Yeah. In Ireland, the joke is that you entrust a victim with an important letter to be given to a person, and so this idea is you give it to different people, and every time you give it to a new person, you have to tell them a new name, and finally when it gets to the recipient, they open it up, and the words on the inside are "Send the fool further." Fun little thing there. In a lot of Nordic countries, so like Finland, Iceland, Norway, and Sweden, a lot of celebration for April Fool's Day is that news organizations will just kind of print fake articles that will be found on the front page, poking fun at the various politicians and things like that. I feel like this is a celebration that has sort of gained international prestige, because I know that local newspapers will often print like false headlines. And then the one that I was most excited about was the April fish, because as I threw up there, in France, the earliest was the Poisson d'Avril, or Fish of April. And I was really curious about this one, so I did a little bit of a deeper dive on this. So, in Italy, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and French-speaking areas of Switzerland and Canada, April 1st is called the April fish. And so this is actually, the way it works is you attempt to attach a paper fish to a person's back without them noticing. Many newspapers also spread a false story to reference a fish, is the subtle clue. So this is, if you put the Fish of April on someone's back, it was almost acted like a kick me sign, and so you had a person walking around with a fish on their back, which, let me tell you, Cody, pretty funny joke.
I love the ye olde fish kick me sign gag. That's right? My favorite.
What a weird little celebration, right? And so, this is, it's kind of gained a level of controversy over the years, I suppose, mainly because, lots of news organizations will play practical jokes. I know every year social media will do a big April Fool's Day prank, things like that. And so, there are people out there who argue that, by fooling the public, you're promoting, misinformation and mistrust and things like that. But hey, it's a lot of fun, and I think people need to calm down a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah, right? This year, it's actually kind of funny. April Fool's Day also falls on the celebration of Easter.
That is funny.
And so, no commentary there, outside of, there have been some hilarious April Fool's Day Easter pranks. Like taking little chocolate eggs and then wrapping the little tin foil around grapes.
Oh, that's so rude.
I know, right? I think it's hilarious.
Oh, that's
Um,
good.
and so, the only reason I bring that up is that April Fool's Day is considered by many to be a popular holiday, but it is not a public holiday. No one actually recognizes it as its own separate entity. So things like Easter and other actual celebrations will supersede that. I was personally curious if it had anything to do with like the Feast of Fools or those foolish celebrations, because it made sense to me. Those things looked to often line up with like the Lenten season or with celebrations around the early springtime. And this is something we'll probably talk about in later episodes, like these ideas. Every country kind of has this idea. It's a celebration of fools called like the Feast of Fools or things like that. But yeah, so that's my little brief history on April Fool's Day. It wasn't an incredible. It was an interesting little thing because I did not realize that it could date as far back as 1392. And so yeah, just kind of a weird little thing there. So do you have any questions about April Fool's Day that I might answer?
I do have a question for you.
Okay.
What is your favorite April Fool's prank that you have done and one that was done to you?
Okay. This one, the one that happened, or the one that I did, it's kind of a reversal prank. And my mom's been doing this for years as well, which is you take a marker and you put a pretty big noticeable mark on your face. And then when people come up to you and be like, excuse me, you have like a mark on your face, you're like, haha, very funny, it's April Fool's Day. I'm not going to fall for that one, idiot. And you have the person go on and on and on. And then eventually you're like, ha, April Fool's, and then you wash it off. I think the best one that was done on me was... this one was a fun one. So this was when I was a little kid. My mom got cereal ready for us, and when we poured the milk in, the milk turned green.
Oh.
And so what you do is you take your white bowl, and you put some drops of food coloring on the bottom of the bowl, and then you pour the cereal over it, and then when you pour the milk in there, it changes the milk's color. So.
Okay.
Right, and what about you? What are your favorite pranks that you've pulled and have gotten pulled on you?
So I'm not really much for pranks, like anything higher than like word gags and things like that.
Okay, fair enough.
However, when I first learned about, being rickrolled and the Rick Astley Never Gonna Give You Up, one of my friends back in the day was trying so hard to avoid any kind of rickrolls or April Fools and all that. And I think she spent the entire day in seclusion.
Oh gosh.
And then at the end of the day, she got online, and I think we were talking over like Instant Messenger or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe Facebook. I don't know how long ago this was. And I knew that she was trying to avoid any kind of, fake news all day. And I was like, hey, I think they just announced the new Pokemon game and then sent her a link to the Rickroll. She got so mad. She's like, God damn it. All day I've been trying to avoid this. And it was great. However,
Classic.
That same gag is the gag that I thought was really funny because somebody pulled the same one on me literally hours later. And I totally forgot about the gag, and I was like, oh yeah, this is so cool. And I was like, oh, come on. So, it was good. It was good.
In some places throughout the world, a way to counter it is to shout, I'm an innocent, or things like that.
But are you really at that point?
No. But yeah, so yeah, little history of April Fool's Day. But I heard you wanted to talk about some pirates, right?
I do.
Stepping on my toes, I see.
Right? I know. This is a very pirate-themed couple of weeks, haven't they?
Yeah, well, hey, it is what it is.
Right. Gosh, this came out March 20th, so the week that you did your solo cast is the week Sea of Thieves came out, if I'm not mistaken.
Ooh.
And I have had a lot of fun with it.
Uh-huh.
For anyone who doesn't know what Sea of Thieves is, we talk about it in a earlier episode, but it is a action adventure video game developed by Rare. If you go, why do I recognize that name? Rare made Banjo-Kazooie and several other really hit Nintendo 64 games, and then they moved over to Microsoft and worked with a couple of Xbox games, and I don't really know where their career went after that.
To Sea of Thieves, obviously.
Right. So Sea of Thieves is an action adventure game where you and up to 4 players get to play pirates. And that's super cool. And you can go around hoisting the sails, navigating, firing cannons, going on voyages, or this game's version of quests, to go and look for buried treasure or skeletons that have come to life and want to take over, and you have to stop them. Or maybe you want to be kind of like a trader or a merchant, and you can go and grab various animals off of islands and sell them to people.
Hooray.
So there's a lot of... It's a very open world game. There's a really big map. Several different, like, enemy pirates are on the same map with you. So there's a lot of, like, PvP and stuff going on, which is, for those of you who don't know, player versus player. So oftentimes what you'll do is you'll go with your buddies, or maybe by yourself. You can play it solo, but you can play up to 4 people, and you'll get hopped into a server with a bunch of other people who are also playing, and you're all doing a bunch of random quests, and sometimes you'll run into each other, and which turns into a slaughter fest of shooting cannons out of your ship to destroy the other ship, and it's super fun. However, it's been getting a lot of flack for being a very shallow game.
Alright, elaborate.
A lot of people have been complaining that, much like another game that I've talked about on the podcast before, No Man's Sky, the game is very shallow with a big open world to explore.
So the ocean is shallow?
You're funny. No, mechanically, the game, like the things that you do to get money, because there isn't really progression. You don't really level up the way you do in like RPGs or other games. Your progression is mostly cosmetic. So what'll happen is you start off and you have like a t-shirt, a belt, some pants, and like sandals. Like you look pretty scruffy for a pirate.
Yeah.
And while you do voyages or you steal other people's loot, you'll get coins. And you can spend those coins on cosmetic items. Like, say you want that big pirate hat with a feather in it. You can get that. If you want to customize your ship so that it's got a skull and crossbones on it, that is a thing you can get. There are all these little cosmetic things, and they cost a ton of money. Like, in terms of last night, I was playing Sea of Thieves last night for about 2.5, 3 hours.
Whoa.
And in that time, I made about 13,000 gold, which sounds like a lot. Like, whoa, 13,000, cool. Yeah, the first ship cosmetic upgrade is 70,000 gold pieces.
It's a lot of gold pieces.
Yeah, and that's kind of how the game is set up. There's a lot of cosmetic items, and they're all very pricey.
Okay.
And which, in this case, wouldn't be a problem. However, the amount of stuff you can do to gain gold is very limited. You can either do 3 voyages, which ends up either being you go and hunt for the buried treasure, either from a map or from like a series of clues. You can go to an island to fight off hordes of skeletons, to fight, old cursed sea captains, and you can turn their skulls in for money. Or, like I said before, there's like a merchant alliance guild that will be like, hey, go grab a pig and give it to this person in this amount of time.
Okay.
So there's about roughly 3 ways in a kind of PvE, which is player versus environment structure, in order to make money. And until you get higher level, and I'll describe that, I mean reputation, which is kind of the only real non-cosmetic terms of progression. You get faction reputation with these 3 groups. So there's the gold hoarders, which, you know, just like it's read on the label, they hoard gold, and every treasure chest, every gold trinket and bauble that you get, you give to them, they give you money, and you get rep.
Okay.
The skulls, there's this kind of weird, almost cult-like group called the Mystics, and they all like these like magic skulls that you get off of like dead pirate captains and things like that. And then there's the Merchant Guild that I've literally never done a quest for, but if you happen to stumble upon anything that's kind of mundane, like silks or powder kegs and things like that, you can give to them for rep.
Huh.
So, the combat is very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Problem is, there isn't a whole lot to do with it.
Interesting.
And because at least right now, the server sizes, I think, are smaller than they were intending to be.
Okay.
So you run into a lot of problems where, you know, it's a pirate game. You want to, like, sail out and fight other pirates while you're out doing stuff. There aren't a whole lot of people out on any given server. Like, the servers are huge, and there's not a lot of people on them, so it's actually very possible to go a couple hours without seeing somebody, or maybe if you do see someone, they're so far away that you'll never catch up to them.
That seems like a bummer.
Yeah, a little bit, but I know that they said that their opening weekend their opening week was a little more than they anticipated. Surprise, surprise. This is what everybody says. And their servers couldn't handle the influx of people who wanted to play.
Understandable.
So,
who doesn't want to be a pirate?
Right. And I think the game is super fun, and if you like the idea of being a pirate and the idea that there isn't necessarily like globs of different things to do in the game, like if you just enjoy, like for me, I can latch on to a certain mechanic or a certain feedback loop for a while and really enjoy it and really get a lot of fun out of it.
Uh-huh.
So for me, I think Sea of Thieves is great. But I do think that the concerns or the kind of criticisms that people are commenting about the game being a little shallow, or, you know, for lack of a better term, their first week wasn't super great in terms of like stability. There was a lot of weird bugs and things like that, so it didn't open well.
Uh-huh. Seems like that.
And on top of that, the game is shallow, and it doesn't really have like it's not story driven. There's not really a story. I mean, there's like some legendary pirate that people like know about, and I think I've heard her name once or twice in like a cutscene at the beginning of the game. Okay. But there isn't really a story. I think the idea is, since it's a sandbox game, you create the story.
Yeah, but there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, and I think if the idea of playing with your friends via pirate ships, and I mean, shit, my first Saturday where I got to play the game for a really long stretch of time, I think I was yarring like a pirate for at least 3 hours, and I was having a blast. So if this sounds exciting, go pick it up. It's on PC and Xbox One. It's super fun. I'm enjoying it. But if you're on the fence, or if any of those complaints that I've said kind of a little weary about it, like those kind of things would really drive you nuts, this game probably isn't for you, and I don't blame you. It's definitely you either love this game or you could pass it up.
Well, get back to me when they make the oceans deeper. Shallow jokes.
The worst.
Yeah. And then, what about this other game you were telling me about?
So the other game I've been playing, I actually kind of picked it up on a whim. I actually think I saw one of my friends playing it on Steam, and I was like, this game is pretty cheap. I think it was like $20.
Okay.
And it's the guys who did FTL, Faster Than Light. I think they're called Subset Games, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm familiar with them. Yeah,
and it's a tactical RPG where you play the role of these time-traveling mech warriors, basically.
Ooh.
And I think that the opening like title screen is like this one mech watching, like looking at a ruined world.
Huh.
And the whole kind of story, I mean, it's kind of story light, but I think the mechanics make up for it. Is that you go back in time because you're trying to save humanity from this like army of like insectoid like giant monsters called Vec.
Huh.
And I will tell you this: it is a incredibly smart tactical game. It rewards you for getting clever with the mechanics. And I actually, right before we recorded, beat my first easy round of it.
Yeah.
And it was so satisfying to beat the first scenario.
Nice.
And it's super fun. It's not super long. I think the idea is that you keep going through the same timeline and unlocking, like, completing challenges so you can unlock new units. Because you start off with kind of your basic, almost Mobile Suit Gundam layout, which is like you get your, like, walking mech Gundam that punches people, which is super fun. You get a tank that shoots people as per usual, and then you get kind of like an artillery unit that shoots and like pushes people around. And there's a lot of neat mechanics in the game. The way it works is each turn, so like it starts off and the monsters move first and they choreograph what they're going to do on their turn.
Huh.
Because you're like time traveler, so like you have like that information or whatever via story nonsense.
Sure.
And so the goal is like this bug is going to attack you on the front. If you take your tank to the side, you can push him out of the way so he, instead of attacking the mech, attacks nothing.
Huh.
So there's a lot of these like neat mechanics of like killing monsters, but also making sure they don't hit anything, because your health is twofold. Each mech has its own personal health, but there are cities that you're trying to protect. And every time the Vec destroy one of those buildings, you lose like a total health. And if you ever reach zero, like your kind of campaign or that timeline is over.
Weird.
Yeah, so it's super cool. If you're into tactics games at all, I think this is definitely one that's worth picking up. It's got a pretty dope soundtrack from what I was listening to. And it's got a almost Advanced Wars style, if you've ever played that on the Game Boy. Okay. It's like almost like 3D pixel, but like isometric. It's super cool. It's definitely worth a check out. It came out February 27th, so it's a little late talking about it, but it's definitely a really fun single player experience. And to kind of hop back to Sea of Thieves, in my personal opinion, Sea of Thieves, like, I would never play that single player. Because the boats that you use, like, they need you to, like, raise the anchor and adjust the sails and doing all this stuff, and it's really annoying to do with one person.
You're not going to Jack Sparrow it.
Well, I mean, you could, but it's difficult. But yeah, Into the Breach, super cool. Sea of Thieves, if you like pirates and you have friends willing to pick it up, both are dope.
Yeah, glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Alright. If Joe's voice was feeling better, this is where he would sing his middle section song.
So we'll just say, middle section.
Oh, I was like hoping, I was planning on that being part of the podcast. Don't edit that out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. It was like a meta commentary about the middle section. Joe? Yeah, okay.
I get it.
Was like so anyways, thank you for listening to Phantom Roulette.
You're killing me.
Participate in the conversation at our social media. We have different things that you can look up and participate in. Like on Twitter, it's at Phantom R Podcast.
You were so close.
_podcast.
Thank you. Fandom R _podcast is where we will be on Twitter.
Yeah.
Joe runs that.
You can email us at phantomroulettepodcast@gmail.com.
Nope.
At phantomroulettepodcast@gmail.com.
Correct. You can find us and ask us questions at fanroulettepodcast@gmail.com.
Also,
Some of our episodes were based off of those questions, so
yeah.
please feel free. We greatly appreciate your questions, feedback, etc., etc.
Also, we're on iTunes, so you should look us up there and download us and leave us nice reviews.
Yeah.
And also, we're on SoundCloud, so you should look that up. That's cool.
Yeah, we have Fandom Roulette for that, for both of those.
Yeah, and also other fun things too. Yeah, participate. We love to hear from you guys. It's fun to know that there are people out there actually listening to us. So
yeah, for sure.
Meal section. Oh, and we also have a website.
Yes, we do have a website. It is www.fandomroulette.com.
See, I was gonna get that one right, so.
Right, and for anybody who was listening to the last podcast and found that there was an audio bug where you couldn't hear Joe, that has been fixed as well.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there was about a couple days where the audio wasn't working. So.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
But it's good now. I tested it. We're all good.
Nice. All right. Middle section. Oh man, it's now is the part of the show where we introduce the garbage kid we know. Joe's gonna say it like a rhyme poet man. Word that rhymes with man. Garbage kid.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You're killing me.
I'm sorry.
So, for those of you who are fresh and new faces, I make a garbage kid. Sometimes Joe does.
Yeah.
I make a kid using Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
I'd be willing to like every other week that, by the way, because that was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah, that works. Yeah. So, we're going to go back and forth on creating a character via Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which has a beautiful...
Wait, everything?
Everything.
Yes.
And for people who are, playing role-playing games, we come up with silly, goofy names and come up with semi-vague but interesting backstories in case you've got a little bit of a creative drought or you're a DM and you want your own characters to jump into the world. I know I've used a couple of these in my own campaigns, so feel free to take these.
And, Cody,
yeah.
Maybe I know you edited last week afterwards. Did you hear the name that I called Finn when he was playing my manservant?
Oh God, no! I wasn't. I couldn't hear across the table when you said it. Who was it?
It was Mabak.
That was last week's character. Yes,
it was last week's character. I love that name so much I couldn't let him go away.
Right. So this week we have a garbage man.
Okay.
And his name is Comet God Battler.
Wow.
Yep.
That's a good name right there. I feel like I'm watching like an 80s sci-fi movie.
Of course you are. He is a human wizard, so he casts spells. I know, wizard's your favorite class as an RPG.
It is my favorite class.
Comet knew his parents and was born in a shed.
Oh, okay, cool. Good job, Comet.
Comet has 5 siblings.
Damn,
and
Comet.
He is the... Huh?
Damn, Comet.
Yeah, and he's the eldest.
Okay.
Comet grew up with his single mother because his father abandoned the God Battler family.
Oh. So wait, after number 6, he was like,
yeah,
I'm out of this place.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a good dude.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah. The God Battler family grew up in a small home, but lived a pretty modest lifestyle.
Okay, that's cool.
Comet had several...
probably working a couple of jobs, I would assume.
Yeah, probably. Comet had several friends, and his childhood was generally a happy one.
Yeah, that's good.
While exploring an old library, Comet found a spell book. He was immediately driven to learn all he could about becoming a wizard. Yeah. Comet is 21 and has had 2 life-defining moments before his adventure.
Alright.
A fiend visited Comet in his dreams to give him warnings of things to come.
Uh-oh. That's not good.
No. And finally, Comet's fortune was told by a diviner. I left it incredibly vague for you,
That's pretty
for the
vague.
audience. And that's Comet. He actually was, it was a bummer that he only had 2 life-defining moments, but that's the way the dice roll.
Yeah, that was really fun to roll on the life-defining moments table.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, so that was our new garbage child.
Hell yeah.
Comet God Killer. So do you think okay, so that was his last name, right? God Killer?
God Battler.
God Battler. It wasn't like he was like, I need a cool edgelord nickname, and he came up with that one for. Okay, it's good to know.
Yeah.
So yeah. So guys, remember last week when I was talking about man, what's going to come next for my character? Because this life-defining thing that my character had been working towards for a fucking year and a half finally came true. Well, Cody, fucking did it. He did it.
I did.
He kidnapped my character's children.
I did. I'm a monster.
So yeah, Cody's a monster, everyone.
I did.
So last week, Cody said, and I quote, I was thinking this was going to be the beach episode, and I don't know what kind of fucked up anime Cody is watching that the beach episode also involves the big bad showing up and antagonizing the heroes and the heroes' families. But I bet it's a bad anime.
It might be the best anime.
Nope. Incorrect. So anyway, Cody, why don't you take us behind the curtain and explain to us?
Okay. So for anybody who is keeping up with the progression of the podcast,
yeah,
Joe had a very heartwarming heart-to-heart with himself and the viewing audience about his character, and a moment that he had where he was left with a bit of I don't know what to do, which was ironic and hilarious because I hadn't listened to the episode before this next session.
uh-huh.
And so I was thinking literally the exact same thing.
Oh, okay. That's good to know, at least.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my players. So I thought we would work on that in the next session. Turns out the big bad guy, Tolvir, had captured your children and is holding them as ransom for you to stop getting in the way. Now, for everyone wondering, what the fuck? It's right, I am a monster. However, to be fair, Tolvir has something from everyone in the party.
I bet at least 3 of those things also fuck over Umgram.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, see, for everyone listening at home and wondering what the heck's going on, my evil character that my party is trying to fight is a very smart and wealthy individual.
Yes, he's a black dragon, which I believe have the highest intelligence modifiers.
I don't know, but I was playing him as a smart dude anyways, regardless of...
It's not like dumb white dragons. Dumb.
Whoa.
I mean, white dragons, have a low intelligence modifier.
Rude. Anyways.
That's just the book.
I know. So, I think this is kind of the long way around of describing, what I was thinking when I made my character, or when I made my villain. Because part of it was, this was my first big bad dude that was going to be around for a really long time. Mm-hmm. So I had to be very careful of what and who and how I was going to do that. And I think that's one of, at least for early dungeon masters, a hard concept to kind of get down. Having a focal villain that is going to be the bane of every character's existence and a personal goal. If my players hate the big bad guy so much with a burning rage like Joe has right now, I have done my job. I have made a villain.
That's true. You
It's
have.
true. I have. And I think and this probably is going to go on for a little bit, a little long winded, but I think good villains drive your players crazy in some way. And I think a big part of what worked in our campaign is that, so for people who are trying to follow along with like a notepad being like, all right, without them explaining the whole campaign, I have all this information. Basically, the party helped a wizard start a ritual that let this big bad guy free.
This is literally like session 1, hour 4, something
It's
like
true.
that.
4 hours in, this character is born. And he had been trapped in another dimension for a really long time. And all he had to do, like, all he had was to think about what he was going to do when he got back. So I had a lot to prepare. Now, not every big bad guy needs to be this super smart, intelligent, having all the plans kind of thing. There are tons of villains, but I wanted to challenge myself with a character who is smart, who is vengeful to the entire populace of this world that I've created, and he had a shit ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it was, at least, part of it is motivation. What motivates him? Now, I won't get into details, but he's really mad at the universe, so he's going to control it, or try to.
Not thrilled about that plan.
Right. No, of course not. Your villains should in some way go against the ideals of the party. Because otherwise they're allies, right? Like, they might be bad dudes, but if you're rolling with a morally checked out group of characters, they're just another ally.
Which we kind of are.
Kind of, but like this particular guy is very evil.
Yes. He's not a good dude.
Not a good dude. So I think that's something to consider, is knowing what your party is. And your party could be anything. You could have a bunch of chaotic evil dudes, but then their villain is like that lawful good paladin who is, through the law and through God's work, trying to stop the party. The villain should in some way try to stop or put a roadblock in front of the party.
Yep.
I think another good thing is always knowing what they're up to. So I have a pretty detailed idea of what he's been doing since he came back from his kind of ethereal prison. And it was good to know, because then I could pull things like I did last session where, oh, fun fact, he's been monitoring you for a very long time. Because you guys decided to pick up a bunch of gold in one of his lieutenant's houses and never stopped to think, oh, maybe there's something wrong here.
I think that was before we realized he had forged gold.
That's true. One of the things they learned is he got a bunch of superpowers by making fake gold.
Yep.
Which may or may not come into his weakness later.
Yep.
So I usually come up with, and there's actually a really good tip on how to create villains in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but I'm going to boil it down. They need to, their ideals or their goals need to go against the party in some fashion.
Uh-huh.
Oftentimes this is, I'm an evil lich, I want to murder everybody, or I want to live forever, and blah, blah, blah. Or I go very against, some kind of moral code that the group has. Sometimes they could be morally gray. Maybe they're not wrong, but they're wrong against the party.
Mm-hmm.
Which, in this case, I could have done, since your characters are very morally questionable. In some cases. Yeah. I mean, some of you are literal criminals.
Yeah. It's true.
However, it was more fitting because most of the people Even though some of them were shifty or criminals in some ways, most of you aligned good. So having a very evil character just seemed natural.
Can I also just
So,
throw something out there?
yeah.
I think one of the important things about making a good villain is also knowing which of your player characters to mess with.
Yes, absolutely.
Because, and so I know you said you have like literally like every member of our party like Tolvir has taken someone special to them, I suppose.
Someone or something.
Someone
It
or
doesn't have to
something.
be a.
Um,
Right.
but like Joel yeah, Joel and I play like we're very funny, comic reliefy people. We try to keep the tone a little bit light and breezy, maybe sometimes to the frustration of our party members. I'll just go ahead and say it, or hell, even our DM sometimes. Um,
Nah.
but when push comes to shove, and we need to get serious, we'll get serious. And so like, I think it was brilliant that you found a way to mess with us specifically,
Hell yeah.
because like as we were leaving, the guy Joel who plays Finn had said he had never felt. It had been a really long time since he had felt that emotionally wrought by something that had happened in a D&D game before.
Yes, I did it.
Which I'm sure to you feels great.
It did. It does.
I think I might have gone through the whole grief cycle in like probably a half an hour.
That checks.
Maybe out of order.
Maybe.
But yeah, like I don't know if it would have had the same impact if you had messed with another member of the party.
Oh no, I definitely chose very carefully. After my first thought going in, so a bit of unveiling of the curtain. I had no idea who I was going to fuck with that session.
Uh-huh.
I was going to play it by ear.
Oh, okay.
Because I was because the mood change, and that's the thing about your table. As a dungeon master, knowing who you're playing with to a certain degree is really helpful, because sometimes you've got characters like Joe and Joel who are comic relief, and they're going to make light of a bad situation, which is perfect. It for me, if I ever throw something real dark and real heavy, I know that you guys are going to balance it out.
Yeah.
And I know that I don't have to necessarily play super funny, because I know you've always got my back.
Yep.
However, that's not always going to be the case at your table. So knowing who to... And the initial idea is I was going to wait around because I wanted to light a fire underneath the party's ass.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what I wanted to do. I wanted them to remember what they were doing and kind of fight with new purpose, new energy.
Yes.
Because it had been a while since I reminded the party, like, oh, hey, there's this dude who is fucking everything up. Go get him.
Yeah, big stakes.
So I didn't know who I was going to hit that session, but then I think we got in maybe about 30 minutes, and I looked at the two of you and I went, I know who to put the fire under.
Yeah.
Because you guys when you guys work together to strike up a plan, there's like this like in almost crazy amounts of like dedication to the cause. And that doesn't happen everywhere else in the party. Like, there are people who like to fight. There are people who like to learn more about the universe and the story. And some people have a very set track.
Uh-huh.
But you and Joel have this kind of energy about you that when you put yourself, like when you guys work together or something happens to the both of you, you guys just push the story in directions that I'm like, oh, yes, that's who I need to hit.
Oh,
so,
cool.
About 30 minutes in, I went, I know exactly who to hit with the big bad evil guy who shows up as they're trying to sneakily walk around and hide amongst the people of a dwarven kingdom.
Yeah.
And he found you.
Also, did you like my use of sending?
Yes,
Yeah.
sending was very good.
I realized it too late because I was like, "Oh man, we're just sitting around here for 2 hours. I should like try to talk to him." Um, I think another thing too, and like maybe you weren't necessarily thinking about this when you did it, but like I know I had bandied about the word retirement a couple of times for
Yes.
Umgrom. I had always said like I was going to retire him when the 12-year saga ended, but you know, a lot of me was feeling like we're kind of reaching a logical conclusion to my story, and then you did that, and it's like now I'm completely on board again. Uh, like, and it wasn't like I wasn't having fun or anything like that. Like I was gonna roll a new character, this that the other thing. It's just that it was like I was starting to have trouble finding like really interesting, satisfying character beats for Umgrom.
Well, yeah, I think up until last session, he had kind of done the things that he wanted to do. Like the reason, and this is, I guess, a word of advice for your players, DM as well. You could use this as well. Have a goal or have like a fire, a passion for why your character is going to be the main focus of a story.
Mm-hmm.
Having a player who kind of sits on the sidelines and isn't really sure why they're there and constantly kind of goes against the grain of progression and story.
Well, hopefully, I wasn't doing that.
No, and I don't think you were. I'm just saying I have known people in the past who have created characters who go, well, my character wouldn't go on this crazy adventure because this, that, and the other thing. And a lot of times especially if you're a fresh new dungeon master, you don't know how to handle that. Like they're like, well, wait, what? But I made this adventure for you. There's the queen in the castle. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Having that motivation, because remember, it's a game, but it's also a group storytelling session.
Sure.
And if you're the one that's trying to stop story, what are you really? I mean, did you really come to the table to play and enjoy and have fun with your friends, or were you there to, like, what were you really doing?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a thing.
I think it's an important thing to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, needless to say, I'm pretty excited to start playing again.
Me too.
Like, Joel and I have been kind of talking in our off time a little bit.
Nice.
About some things that I'd like to talk to you about also, like off mic and things like that, but
Sure.
I don't want to bog other people down with our planning sessions. All right. And actually, so neither of us necessarily felt passionate, or well, there was nothing really that we felt was going to work for a fourth section this week. So I think we're actually going to wrap it up right around here, if that's okay with you, Cody.
Yeah, I mean, down the road, I am watching the second season of Jessica Jones, so I would definitely like to talk about that, but I'm not at a point where I've watched enough to make a valid point or,
Sure.
Good points. It's more like, oh, what's happening next? Oh, I'm so excited.
And like,
Which, at least at this point, I believe I'm episode 4 or 5. It's really good. It's definitely worth a watch.
Sure.
We will give you guys time to catch up so that we can talk or geek out about how awesome Jessica Jones is.
And I'd like to talk about Annihilation, but like I'm still kind of constructing my thoughts on it. So
yeah, of course.
So I think we're gonna wrap it up right about here. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Our middle section is there for all of our pertinent information.
Yes.
But the most important ones, iTunes, SoundCloud, or our main website is where you can find us and make sure that other people learn about us as well. We appreciate having you guys, and this is always a pleasure to do. Signing off for Fan Roulette, this is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.